Hi guys, it is my pleasure to be here. Today is World Day for Health and Safety at Work. So it is therefore important that we continually feed you with safety tips for your well-being. Alright, in today's video we shall be talking extensively on fire safety, extinguisher usage and its objectives. Fire safety, extinguisher usage, and its objectives. As a matter of fact, for us to understand fire safety, we must put into consideration these three parameters. One, we must understand the combustible process. Two, we must understand the fire extinguisher types and its operational procedure. And three, you must understand the basic fire concepts, which has to do with the raise and the pass method. Now the raise, the arrow stands for rescue, the A stands for, the arrow stands for rescue, the A stands for alarm, the C stands for contain, and the E stands for extinguish. When you go into a building, the first thing you want to do is to rescue the situation, just in case you want to rescue a victim or property. And then the other, that's for rescue. And then for alarm, you are going to raise alarm to call an emergency team. The C for contain, you want to contain the fire. And the E, that is you want to extinguish the fire. Now, for fire to emanate, okay, there are these basic constituent materials that makes up fire: the heat, fuel, and oxygen. The presence of heat, fuel, and oxygen brings about fire. If you want to prevent fire from emanating or from erupting, then you must not have these three parameters in place. And also we want to look at the 5 types of fire classification. Okay, now we have the class A, B, C, D, and K, the 5 types of fire classification. The class A is the one we describe as ordinary combustible fire, which involves paper, wood, and plastic. Now, if fire emanates as a result of paper that eventually burned, or the burning of wood or plastic, that is termed as the class A fire. For the class B fire, it is talking about the inflammable liquids. Okay, inflammable liquids such as fuel and petrol. The presence of fuel and petrol causes fire. It is termed as class B fire. Then the class C is electrical components, fire that emanates from electrical components such as circuit breaker, switch panel, and so forth and so on. That's class C fire. Is one of the most dangerous kind of fire ever, electrical components. Then we have the class D fire that looks at which involves metal fire such as magnesium, potassium, aluminium. The presence of this is the class D fire. And then lastly we have the class A fire, which of course talks about the kitchen fire, such as the cooking oil, animal fats, and so forth and so on. Okay, having said that, now we want to look at the following steps to tackle a fire in a building. Following steps to tackle a fire, a building or anywhere fire emanates, especially when the fire is at its preliminary stage. I will look at the following step. 1. The first thing you want to do is to call 911. Call the emergency emergency fire rescue team. While at that, you get into the surrounding or the building. Another thing you want to do is to assess the fire. You assess the fire, that is the level of the fire. You want to know the level of the fire. If the fire is too much for you to tackle, if the fire has grown bigger than you can ever imagine, it is advisable that you do not fight such fire, because the first thing, you must always fight the fire when it has its early stage, except you are a well-trained fireman with certification, plus you have all the necessary fire materials to fight such kind of fire, else you don't fight the fire. Another thing, that's two. For three, you make sure the fire is in a position where you can comfortably assess. You can comfortably assess the fire before you fight the fire. 4, observe the smoke level. It's one thing that actually kills is the smoke in the fire. So when you go into a fire environment, you want to check the smoke level. If the smoke is too high for you to be able to handle, then the best thing for you to do is to back down, drop and leave. Don't try to be a hero rather. Because when the smoke becomes too much for you to inhale, it weakens your body and it can as well take your life. So you back off. 5, you have to check the radiant heat. The radiant heat, sometimes when the fire becomes too much, the heat becomes too much, the temperature is high, it can affect you. That is why it is advisable not to make attempt to extinguish or fight a fire that is very high. Check the radiant heat. 6, don't face the direction of the wind. If you are fighting fire, ensure you are not facing the direction of the wind, because when the fire moves in the direction of the wind, and that is how the fire grows, so it can easily catch up with you. You must always back the direction of the wind when you are trying to fight fire. Do not face the direction of the wind. 7, know your evacuation route. Know your evacuation route or your exit route. You must try to know when you came into a fire building or something, you must know the route in which you came in through, and also know the route in which you are going to exit. 8, make sure the extinguisher is functionable. That is done prior to the situation, because this is an emergency situation. You do not want to fight fire with an extinguisher that has expired. So from time to time, when you have extinguisher in your homes or your offices or anywhere, your workplace, always try to service the extinguisher. Look at the lever, the extinguisher, the nozzle for any blockage or any areas where you feel the extinguisher can fail. And when it is due time for to fill in the material that is in the extinguisher, like the DPC, dry chemical powder or carbon dioxide, try to fill the extinguisher. So know your extinguisher. Another thing you want to do, you want to extinguish using the pass method. But before then, another thing I quickly remembered is when you are leaving the fire building, also leave through your back. Don't face. If you're leaving the fire building, you evacuate through your back so that you can easily assess the fire. You are facing the fire while leaving. You are not going to back a fire while you're leaving the building. And then lastly, you want to extinguish the fire using the pass method. The pass method, the P represents remove the pin from the extinguisher. You remove the pin. That's for P. For P. A stands for aim low at the base of the fire. Aim low at the base of the fire. And then S stands for squeeze the lever to remove the discharge in order to extinguish the fire. And then the other S stands for sweep side by side the fire while extinguishing it. I know it's going to be somewhat difficult, but in our next video, when we want to practicalize how to extinguish fire, you will understand the past method, because then I will be teaching, having practicals on how to do that. That's how to extinguish fire. Now, tips on how to evacuate from a fire building. If you are eventually in the fire building and you want to evacuate, you have no help, you are not fighting the fire, what are those things you are supposed to do? First thing you want to do if you're leaving a fire building is to hold your breath. You hold your breath. The reason why you are holding your breath, remember we talked about the smoke that emanates from fire. That smoke is pretty high. So the smoke actually kills faster. So you are holding your breath so that you don't inhale the smoke. 2, if possible, crawl. You have to go down and crawl while you're leaving the building. Crawl while you're leaving the building. The essence of crawling is to avoid, oxygen is easily around the air, but when you go down, you are below the oxygen level, so you crawl while leaving the building. 3, if the fire catches up your body, drop down and roll your clothes. If the fire catches your clothes, drop down on the floor and roll to smother the fire. 4, you try to close all windows and doors to starve the fire. Starve the fire from oxygen, and the fire gradually goes off. Then 5, you must locate your nearest muster point or a safe place for while you're evacuating. Locate a muster point or safe place. And then lastly, we want to quickly look at the 3 ways of extinguishing a fire. We talked about the cooling, the smothering, and the starving. The cooling, you use water and detergents. You use water and detergent and to reduce the temperature of the fire. Okay, this cooling helps to reduce the heat and oxygen. It takes off the heat and oxygen when you cool the fire. Then the smothering, in the case of the smothering, you are trying to use wet clothes. For example, wet towel and fire blankets. Use wet towel and fire blankets. This also helps reduce oxygen, just like in the case of the cooling. And then the last one is the starving. When you're starving the fire, what you are doing, for example, an example of starving the fire is to close all doors and windows, just as we explained earlier. By so doing, you are gradually starving the fire of oxygen. When you close doors and windows, the fire does not have enough air, it does not have enough oxygen. This is just a theoretical way of the fire process. Trust me, in our next video, we'll have it full. We'll go into practical on how to extinguish a fire. If you find this video interesting, why don't you hit the subscription button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, share, comment, and like. Thank you very much.